Hello, hello, hello. This is Gresh from the I Am CEO podcast. And I have a very special guest on the show today. I have Nicole Russin-McFarland of Lucky Pineapple Films. Nicole, it's awesome to have you on the show.
Hello. I'm in a closet. So, I mean, quarantine.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that time,
Hopefully
right?
But I will tell the audience in the future, someday this is going to be, someday very soon, after the quarantine, this background might be windy Wellington and the beautiful views of New Zealand or London, because that's where we're going to open companies.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely looking forward to kind of talking a little bit more about that. But before we jumped in, I wanted to read a little bit more about Nicole so they can hear about all the awesome things that you're doing. And Nicole Russin-McFarland is a film director and film score composer. Successful with her short film, she is currently self-animating her first animated feature film for release called The Homework's Revenge, Esther in Wonderland. Esther in Wonderland's film score album has already earned itself over 100,000 Spotify streams. And after this project is available, Nicole will be making large budget animated films. Nicole, are you ready to speak to the I'm CEO community?
Yeah.
Awesome.
I love talking about what I do. So yeah,
there you go. Well, you're in the right place. So before I wanted to kind of kick everything off with what I call your CEO story, hear a little bit more about what exactly you do, what led you here, and then hear more about all the projects that you're working on as well too.
Okay. Well, basically every interview I have to explain to people comparisons, or people don't understand me. So I recommend that for people. Find comparisons, and my comparison would be I love Hans Zimmer and I love Peter Jackson, and I always want to be like them rolled together into one. Hans Zimmer is a rock star from Germany. He's so cool, and he is somebody who on paper we are not supposed to believe would be the king of Hollywood film scores, but he is, because he's super amazing businessman. Peter Jackson, again, the same thing. People say that you have to be American or occasionally British, and to make it in the American film market, you have to be all kinds of things, and that's not the case. Peter Jackson lives in Wellington. He's from a little town in New Zealand. He's a Kiwi dude. Again, super, really intellectual, and that's one reason he's successful, is because of how smart he is. And he also, I do want to give credit to his wife, but at the time she was his girlfriend, and together they made the biggest movies in the world, Lord of the Rings. And the third person I always talk about is, not a surprise to people, James Cameron, Canadian gentleman from not a busy area in Canada, and yet he's another person who's one of the best directors ever, and the most successful because of how smart he is. And there's something I can mention here. I know people say like, oh, it's film and whatever, but it kind of overlaps with any business people want to do. And I can talk about myself and what we're doing. But anyway, so those are the dudes I love. I always say I have loves of my life, not romantically, but work-wise. And James Horner and some others. But those are the main ones. And I kind of relate to their stories more than Steven Spielberg and other people. Although I love Mr. Spielberg with every bit of my heart. And I love Amblin and all he does, because he makes it so personable. And they're the only people in Hollywood who write back to people if you write them online that you love a movie and stuff, and I or whatever it is to the fans. And they also were super cool and nice when I did an article with them for Variety and on Gremlins, actually different things, but part of it's Gremlins, and how he was one of the first directors to have toys and tie-ins for all the films he produced. It was a wonderful article I loved being part of. Not because I wrote it. It was wonderful because of the topic and all the things in it. Yeah. I'm not Kanye. It's wonderful because I wrote it. So anyway, I always want to do that, but in order for people to hire you, you can't just be the person who shows up and you're a 20-year-old girl who wants to make a movie. You have to actually start making movies. And nobody was hiring me to work. The standard thing when I would ask film directors was, I would tell them I want to do this, and I would meet them and whatever. And they would tell me, well, apply for a production company, apply for a place where you like movies. That never happened. Nobody was hiring me. And I was just meeting kind of people who were not, I met really good directors, but I also met people who were kind of the underworld and not really serious about filmmaking. They're just in it for churning out a quick buck, and they don't really want to, make more films. They want to make one or two independent films. And I didn't want to be part of that. I wanted to be James Cameron and also some of the directors I was meeting. And just, Ang Lee, all those amazing people, best director winners. I want it to be like them and not like the people who are actually the majority of people who go and fail, or they're just in it for a quick buck, like I said, and they have no intentions to make art or make great cinema or even blockbusters. So what we are doing right now, and this is why I have a smile, like from here to here, every day I've been waking up, is because I am with my friend Ryan McGregor, who's a British actor. He's from Scotland. We are going from my little DIY animation that I've been doing to prove to people I'm serious, and on YouTube, and it has interests and stuff. People watch those, and we've had Amazon Prime, but it does better on YouTube. So we're going from that to me co-founding a actual film studio with Ryan in New Zealand, and we're going to start with animation, and after animation we're going to go to blockbuster movies. We're also going to, at the same time, once we're kind of settled a little bit in New Zealand, get everything going for a British version, so that way we can have, it's basically the same concept, but we would be able to tell British stories. McFarland obviously is part of my last name, Russin-McFarland, and I don't really know a lot about Belfast or Ireland and those things. I would love to, and love to know more about British culture. Ryan wants to tell a lot of Scottish stories, and we also have some friends who want to create stories, and to have things that are not necessarily seen a lot, because most people only have London and they don't have like London, LA, New York. That's where people live in Hollywood films. So we want to do all that and be part of the great Kiwi scene, and it's not only Sir Peter Jackson these days, it's also James Cameron and a whole bunch of people who go down to film in New Zealand, and Ghost in the Shell and all these super amazing movies are made there. And if not there, the special effects are at least made there. To kind of went in on that. It's like the Little Mermaid, and she sings to be part of your world. And I always wanted to be part of your world of these men, and to just kind of follow in their footsteps, quite literally going down to New Zealand. And like I said, in Britain. And wherever you want to take it from here, I can follow your lead.
Okay, sounds good. Well, I appreciate you for breaking that down. Tell us a little bit about your story and what exactly you're working on now. What would you call, or what would you consider to be what I call your secret sauce, the thing you feel kind of sets you apart and makes you unique?
Well, I think because I'm Midwestern and I am from Illinois, I'm somebody who grew up all around Illinois because my dad would get jobs everywhere. So I got to see Chicago on weekends. I got to see downstate Illinois. I got to see St. Louis. I got to see all that stuff. And then sometimes we would go to Kansas City. And I've lived on and off in New York, and I've also gone on and off to New York. And I got to see the hustle that immigrants bring to Manhattan. And I just noticed, I mean, not to brag, but the greatest people in the world from every profession, whether it's Walt Disney, Kanye West, and regardless of what people think of him, he is a brilliant producer, and I admire his work. You could even say Hugh Hefner, even though he's a controversial person, he started a brand that was about it changed, but it was originally about the healthy image of the girl next door being perfect as she is. And that is a good message. Now, it got twisted, and I don't think he was, maybe then he ended up promoting bad body image and whatever, but originally it was good. It was like, you don't need to lose weight. You don't need anything. You're perfect as you are, just because you're the secretary or whatever it is. And you could look at Henry Ford or all these people, and they're all Midwesterners. And sometimes they're not about necessarily a certain background, like Scandinavian or Dutch or whatever. It's just because they're Midwesterners, and you're growing up learning that there's no reason you can't be successful. Everybody has, this is something that people don't understand in the South, or when you talk to people from England. In the Midwest, everyone has the same accents. So somebody who grew up on the south side of Chicago with no money has the same accent as a rich man who grew up elsewhere, as whoever, no color, no socioeconomic class, none of that. We all have the same accents. We're all the same people. We're all someone's car breaks down on the highway. We all fix it for you. We don't care how rich or poor you are, whatever. We're just nice to each other. There's this community there. And I kind of I've seen that in Manhattan from the people who are actually native New Yorkers, but I've never seen that anywhere else. I've never seen that in, that you go to a cool city I don't know an example, but say a super cool metropolis of Austin, Texas, and everyone's there together as a family. Like I don't see that there. Not to knock it because it's a great place, and I went to school there. Or West Hollywood or wherever that these places I've been more acquainted with. We don't have that community, and that's kind of also another reason I'm drawn to New Zealand and Britain and these places is because I think I sense that a little bit more. But there's nothing like the Midwest. And I think
Yeah.
you can't buy that. I think you grow up being like, the world is yours. You can do whatever you want. And when people tell me that they've grown up elsewhere, they get told that's impossible. You can't do that. The Midwest is like, hey, you, boy, you have $5 in the bank. You use that $5 and make yourself a businessman. Like where in the
Yeah.
rest of the world, people would say you only have $5 in the bank, and then it's like glass is half empty.
Mentality.
Yeah.
Yeah. That,
There's
that
no, that's
makes,
why it's just a totally different way of
yeah.
life. And you don't realize that until you step outside the Midwest. And then
Yeah.
you say, like, oh, wait, I grew up in the most awesome place on earth and I never knew. I used to say, get me the F out of here. Now I'm so happy I'm from there.
Right.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, who you are and where you're born definitely becomes a
Yeah.
huge part of you. So I appreciate you sharing that. So I wanted to switch gears a little bit, and I want to ask you for what I call a CEO hack. So this could be like an app, a book, or a habit that you have, but what's something that makes you more effective and efficient?
Okay, so one of the things that makes me more effective and efficient is I don't care what other people think of me in a positive way, meaning I'm not going to be mean to you. But if people are set in their ways, I just don't care that something is trending right now because that's a big problem that is in the US entertainment industry. That's why I have arguments with people is because they say like, you're not this, you're not that. And it doesn't matter. There's always a trend. You don't look a certain way. You don't sound a certain way. You don't dress a certain way. You are not right for the moment, and they're very into tokenism. So it's like, let's get an Asian girl. Oh wait, you're not that. Oh, let's get this. And me, they're like, people don't know what to do with me because they're like, okay, a redhead chick, but you're of different backgrounds. It's like, how does that? And they're like, why are you white? Whatever. It's like, it's genetics, DNA, whatever. And then I actually had problems where, like, when I was a model at a modeling agency, I would deal with that all the time. They're like, well, you're fair, but you don't look like these girls from the Ralph Lauren catalogs, but you are these backgrounds. Do you speak other languages? Can we use you as like a maid? I'm like, no, I'm not going to be a maid or whatever. Or, and all these stereotypical things, and people didn't know what to do with me. And like I said, it's not, it's something that people deal with a lot. It's not like it's only to me, and some people have it way far worse off than I do, but it's just kind of that sort of thing. And then it goes to music. Like I mentioned to you before this, that people don't want to deal with orchestras. They don't want to deal with people who want to create classical compositions, or at least a mix of jazz and different things. And there are very few people who actually believe in film music these days. Pharrell Williams, Hans Zimmer. I interviewed Henry Jackman. He's a super cool guy. Certain people believe in it, but they are competing with many people who just want to have clashes and bangs. And it sounds like as a businessman I know said, somebody picking up trash outside in the garbage truck, and it comes around like beeps and clashes. And he said, I could record that and it would be a film score. And I said, yeah, that would be a film score. And that's the way music is. It's no longer music.
Yeah.
So I want to bring back music and bring back orchestras and not let it die. And my eventual goal with this company is that we in New Zealand and Britain would have in-house orchestras. Now that's going to be far away, but we're going to make it happen. It's not that it's overnight because we have to start these things and get, our animation going. But, and then also with filmmaking, there's a certain way people like cartoons. It's gotten to where people, in other markets are waking up and they don't like those cartoons and they want to see actual stuff like it used to be. But right now it's just terrible. And then it's beyond tokenism. So many stereotypes and the trends are terrible.
Right.
I mean, you can look at any failure in the box office of major films, and it's because, and I don't want to make fun of anyone and sound mean, but there are certain movies where I know they failed because they changed the format of what made them success stories to try to fit the mold.
Yeah.
Instead, like films trying to be feminist or whatever, when all you have to do to have a feminist movie is have a tough lady.
Yeah. Well,
Top
you
pretty
have to.
lady.
Yeah, you have to be able to kind of break through that noise, and I appreciate
Yeah.
you, as you say, and being true to yourself. Because I think
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you always want to make sure that you're running your own race and you're staying true to yourself, no matter what
Yeah.
external forces might do. So I wanted to ask you now for what I call a CEO nugget. So this could be a word of wisdom or a piece of advice. It might be something you would tell yourself if you were to hop into a time machine.
How old am I in the time machine?
Anywhere you want to go back to.
Okay. I would tell myself, okay, well, I always say it is the year 2009, and I am a very underpaid freelance writer for the newspaper, for a newspaper I like, the New York Daily News. I'm also a recently signed model in Manhattan, and I'm arguing with people all the time, and I'm not getting any other people to believe in me other than the New York Daily News. And I'm also dealing with lots of harassment because this was pre-Me Too in a Roger Ailes world, and nobody would hire me, and because I wouldn't agree to it. So I would tell myself, you know what? As much as you love Manhattan and you need a day job and all that jazz, as they say in the Midwest, what you need to do, if you really want to be like Peter Jackson, you pick up a book, study special effects, you study, which is what I'm doing now as an adult, and I've done for some time, but you need to study animation, you need to study all this like he did, and you, as soon as you understand all of that enough, and you're brave enough and you start making your movies that you put out to the world just to prove you can, because you need to be doing that instead of looking for jobs 24/7. You do need a day job, but don't waste your time where you don't belong, and ring up the New Zealand Film Commission when you're ready. And I would say that because it would save me a decade of time. I'm American, and don't get me wrong, I love America, but I think people change when they move to Los Angeles, or there's something in the water there. I don't know, because it's like they are no longer thinking with their business mindsets. They're just thinking about trends or making the news or whatever it is. It's like you need to think about the business of show business, and that's why I love who I love. And ironically, all the gentlemen I love are always working in other countries, or other, at least with, they're from other countries, or marking in those markets. Hans Zimmer had a world tour, and then much of it was in Europe. And James Cameron films a lot in New Zealand, and obviously Sir Peter Jackson, and then all the
Nice.
bunches of people I love who are like on their crews and stuff, and people who work on, and even in LA, those people are always collaborating with people in Wellington. So
Yeah,
yeah.
no, I appreciate that nugget, and definitely bringing that down. And so now I wanted to ask you my absolute favorite question, which is the definition of what it means to be a CEO. We're hoping to have different quote unquote CEOs on the show. So Nicole, what does being a CEO mean to you?
Okay, so it would mean that it is scary because sometimes you really have to follow what you want to do. But if you were smiling, like I mentioned to you, I felt very sad for a long time. I've been smiling a lot, like that. Like people can't see me on the podcast version of this, but on the YouTube one they can. I'm smiling like a clown.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that is what you want. So if something makes you smile when you talk about it to people, or it makes you happy, that's what you want. And it's not, even though it's a little bit scary, you should follow that. And if you're feeling bad that you can't just deal with people, you feel unwelcome, you're getting these bad signals, read them and go with them, and don't deal with those people. Don't say that you're dealing with products. Don't source products from bad people. As an example, we've run into lots of problems where people want to look at our scripts, and sometimes people seem legitimate, but for the most part, if someone, there's a reason people make, and at least in England and in LA, usually you sign a non-disclosure agreement because people steal scripts. And so we've run into a bunch of people who are just kind of, they're just sound shady. And I don't want to, my vibe says I'm not working with them. They just want to steal our ideas and not work with us. They can't give us quotes about how much they'll charge us to animate. And that's one reason even though we wanted to start a studio later, we're just going to do it now because we don't trust people. We don't want to deal with all that drama. And we also don't, meaning Ryan and I, we don't want to, we have a store that we also have with Samantha V. Hutton called House of Film. House, like in German, Haus. And we don't want to deal with people who are negative in companies who can't source t-shirts or whatever it may be, and then we're getting problems. So we're actually looking into some other products that we're going to do, and we don't want to use the bad people we've been meeting, I guess you could say.
Yeah, that makes
And
sense.
follow your instincts. And if you are unwelcome somewhere, don't go there. You are welcome. As I said, the New Zealand Film Commission, people are really nice, and other people are really nice, and people in the special effects community who work on the movies I love, and directors who are in that realm are nice to me. So I feel welcomed. But there are certain people who've made me feel unwelcome. People who've been mean without reason. Like over the years, people I've wanted to work with, and they've been mean to me. And I just say, like, good riddance,
Yeah, you
not
have to
dealing with
definitely.
you.
Yeah, you have
And
to
many
definitely do
times
that
people try
and
to
have
force things. That's
and
what I'm
have
saying.
that.
Like, people listening, they try to force their way or say, let's make this happen, and you shouldn't do that.
Right.
So,
Yeah. No, that makes sense, Nicole. I definitely appreciate that. And for people that want to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to do that and get in touch with you?
on social media, I'm Nick Russin, Nicrussin. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. And we will definitely have the links and information in the show notes so that everybody can follow up with you. But I truly appreciate you taking some time out and appreciate
Yeah.
you lending some words of wisdom with us as well, too. And I hope you have a phenomenal rest of the day.
No, I will. Thank you.